Actually, I got a lot of feedback from our last podcast, and especially when I started like redoing the new ones now, that people loved your voice.
Really?
Yeah, they said you got such an amazing voice.
I kind of hate my voice. Like, I think when you hear your voice back, you're like, what's going on?
I reckon you could do a side career of like audiobooks.
Audiobooks. Okay. Yeah.
It was just you got a very soothing voice.
Okay.
Amazing.
I can do some audiobooks. Yeah.
This production was recorded at the podcast studios in the Media Arts Centre at Murdoch University. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Murdoch University. Any content provided by the hosts and guests are their personal opinions and are not intended to represent the views or opinions of the university, its administration, faculty, or staff. Now we have that out of the way, let's talk science. Paramount importance.
It's been 6 years since you've been in the studio where we've done a podcast. We've obviously kept in contact.
Yeah.
But I want to.
6 years.
I know.
Time's gone by.
That's gone by.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 6 years, but geez.
Yeah, I guess
kind of a lot's happened, eh? Like COVID and everything was in that period of time. Moving away from Murdoch for me was one of the things.
Yeah. Well, you haven't stopped shark science since then. You've done a lot of work.
No, I've been probably more busy than ever, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's dive straight down to that. What have you been doing?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I guess everything kind of stopped a little bit for COVID, but here in Western Australia, we had this unique situation where we didn't have any COVID in the state. Our state borders closed and we had like the world's biggest COVID-free bubble. So I started doing a lot more work in Western Australia as opposed to sort of South Africa and California and the places I had been working before. I mean, they still haven't got back to California since COVID, but I've done work quite a bit of work in Exmouth and Nigaloo, which I'd never been to before then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, my problem before COVID is that because I had so much international work when I was here, it was more like lockdown in the uni, and I spent a bit of time going up with the lab, Adrian's lab at HBI at Murdoch, into the Kimberley. So I spent some time doing the swordfish and bull shark stuff with Adrian, and some time doing the turtle work with Jenna. But yeah, before COVID, I hadn't really done any other field work in Australia. So I worked for fisheries and we did the South Coast shark fishery, which took me down south a lot.
Right.
Which was new.
Yeah.
I did a dive job, deckhand dive job, like rescue coxswain at Rottnest, which took me to Rottnest way more than I'd been before. I did both of those jobs towards the end of my PhD when the scholarship was running low. And then right at sort of the end point, the handing in for my PhD, which was, I guess, a big milestone since our last podcast together. I got a postdoc position at UWA, and after my postdoc, I got a research fellowship staying at UWA, all with shark kind of work, a little bit of turtle work that I did in the postdoc as well.
That's because of your tagging and tracking and ability. Yeah,
pretty much.
Ecology.
And also I guess project management for that as well. A couple of PhD students, Mike Taylor for the turtles and Ben D'Antonio for the tiger sharks have finished their work in Shark Bay now, and that's sort of gradually coming out and being published. And then with my own research project that I ran after that, we've been pretty much everywhere that I've experienced since then. So we do a lot of work in Jurien Bay Marine Park. We work in Geraldton. We work a few places in between Jurien Bay and
shark
Geraldton.
tagging still?
This is all shark tagging, yeah.
Okay.
We're mostly working with tiger sharks. We work with pretty much any species that we'll find, but it's the tiger sharks that we seem to find just about everywhere.
Is that because they take the drum lines the most? Is that Is that how you usually catch them?
Yeah. So for this work, we are using drum lines, scientific drum lines. So we just set three. It's basically just 3 lines set away from the research vessel. And it's not so much a drum as it's just a float. I guess back in the day, people would have used like big oil drums to catch big sharks, and that's what people think of when they think of drum lines, like big meat hooks. Whereas we just use a bit of bait and a surface marking float, and then an anchored line. So it's just a couple of floats really, and you look for when they start bobbing, and when they start bobbing, then you know you've got a shark. We'll go over and we'll check out what it is. If it's a big tiger shark, might give it 5 minutes to chill out a bit. If it's something like a hammerhead, we'll work with it very quickly, get it to the side of the boat, tag it, release it, let it swim on.
Do you catch other things other than sharks on these lines?
Never.
Right.
I say never. Never in Western Australia. I have worked on a lot of other projects as well. I've spent quite a bit of time in America lately, in Florida, and you can get other animals caught on just different types of line that people use, different hooks that they use, different baits that they use. But the stuff that we've been doing in so Midwest and then up as far as Ningaloo Reef and Exmouth Gulf, there we're kind of targeting large sharks. So we use really large pieces of bait, like the entire fish frames from cleaning stations and quite large circle hooks. And there's not a lot else that can get caught on those, just because it's going to have to swallow a massive fish and then get that hook in its mouth to get that far. So we tend to not catch anything else because of that.
Can we delve down in one of these projects? Like, where's sort of the hot spots for, obviously it's going to be certain species in different areas. On the south coast of Western Australia, what was sort of the main species we were seeing down there?
So, I mean, our project does go down there, particularly to Albany, usually with the UWA Field Techniques unit.
Actually, like students can go to that.
Yeah, students.
To tag sharks?
Yeah, well, I mean, this year I didn't run it, but the year before I was running a shark tagging workshop, shark handling, tagging, tracking. But, you know, we caught no sharks. So it was, well, you know, in theory it was a cool unit. I think they all had a good time, and we had some excellent students in that group. But we didn't catch a shark in the 3 days. But, you know, like when you've got 3 day research trip that's, you know, the dates are set from a long way off, you know, you can't really account for weather in that. And we kind of gradually, the weather got better. And by the third day I was confident we were going to get one, but we didn't in the end. You know, that's just a limited time for field work.
Yeah.
Which is good experience for the students, because that happens a lot actually.
So it's not always successful going out tagging sharks.
It's not always successful. We've kind of gone off topic of what we find down south.
Yes,
but I mean, there's certainly plenty of sharks around, but you don't always catch the target species that you're after.
Were these great whites that you not of the students?
For the students, I was after bronzies.
For your projects down there, was that the main ones you were looking for?
Well, actually, I mean, really, we were expecting to find tiger sharks down there too, because there's quite a lot of tiger sharks down by Albany, particularly in summer months. And so tigers, bronzies, daskies, and working with fisheries, sandbars as well. We did in the shark fishing for fisheries that I did. The fishermen caught a baby great white while we, the science team, were driving down one morning, and we hadn't quite got as far as where were we? I think we were Augusta way for that trip. So I've still not caught a great white in Australian waters.
Oh, really?
No. Actually, the trip that I was on in Florida recently with Saving the Blue earlier this year. Saving the Blue actually out right now catching sharks, and they catch lots of hammerheads, and they've been catching a lot of sandbars this week. But the day I rotated off the boat, and we caught big-eyed thresher too, which was cool. But the day that I wasn't on the boat was the day they caught a great white, and I was I was a bit gutted about that. We haven't really focused on the south coast. You would expect to find more great whites down there.
Why is that?
Well, you tend to get great whites in the colder waters, and you tend to get species like tiger sharks in warmer waters. But it's really a kind of prey preference rather than great whites can go into warm water, and tiger sharks we know can go into cold water because we find them in Albany. But great whites will focus on things like seals and sea lions and marine mammals, and there tends to be way more of those down south than there is up north because they're a colder water species. And there's probably a preference in fish as well, fish species that are down south versus up north. That tends to be what brings great whites to colder waters and tiger sharks, say, as an example, to warmer waters.
Right. So when you've gone in the Midwest and Northwest, you're still chasing tiger sharks, and I'm guessing you'll get a lot of type of whaler sharks in as well.
Yeah.
And you're tagging them to look at their movement?
Yeah, a bit of both. So one of the reasons why we were targeting tiger sharks specifically was we have a PhD student, Jess Pierce from UWA, who's looking at tiger shark genomics, and she's using eDNA as well, along with our tagging and tracking data for her PhD. So tiger sharks were quite important for that, to get enough sample size for her PhD. We're taking samples in the form of blood for whole genome work, fin clips for population genomics, and then her eDNA samples are taken around every area where we catch a tiger shark.
Right. So what sort of results have you been finding?
Well, Jess is still writing up her PhD, so I don't want to talk in that space too much. But I will say from the tagging and tracking, we've seen already some pretty interesting results. Also, with a sort of mini project alongside of this project was with Ben D'Antonio, where we tagged a bunch of tiger sharks in Exmouth Gulf. And that was, again, specifically looking for tiger sharks, but also helping with Jess's PhD too. Some of those tracks are starting to come in now. And we've found a lot of concentration around Exmouth Gulf from the sharks that we tagged, but we have found them off one of the fish aggregation devices off Steep Point Shark Bay. We've also, where was he telling me? He literally just messaged me on the way here saying that we've just detected another shark. I don't think it was as far as Albany. I think, Coburn Sound. It was Coburn Sound. So it's right here off our doorstep. One of the sharks has been around.
That was tagged up in Exmouth? Or?
I believe it's one from Exmouth, yeah.
Yeah, right. That's a long movement. Why do sharks migrate like that?
I mean, there can be a lot of different reasons, but it can be as they're growing, as they're maturing, their prey preferences change, their niches change, and maybe being in one place, certainly for all its life, isn't gonna work out. It's gonna move for food. It's gonna move for mating reasons, perhaps.
Do they sort of go back to the same mating ground? Is there like a site fidelity or something?
There is in most species, but I mean, there's a lot more species that aren't tagged and tracked, and there's a lot more areas where even species that have been on. And it's not necessarily the same everywhere, but phytopatry is going back to those same areas, or site fidelity. That's been proven in quite a few species, but particularly great whites were kind of the poster child of those studies. And the same shark would go back to the same spot either year after year, or every 2 years, or some people suggested 3 years, and it was a breeding cycle. It seems in California it's more like either every year or every 2 years. In South Africa, where I tagged a lot of great whites, we would see the same sharks come back either every year or twice a year, sometimes some sharks. And there's a lot of migration between, say, Mozambique and back again to the Western Cape of South Africa. Right.
In the last podcast we did, you spoke about only having like one great white shark go from like Australia to South Africa. Is that still the case, or do they ever make that great journey, or even from South Africa to California, or
that hasn't been seen before? California and South Africa hasn't. It's not impossible, but crossing the equator is usually quite a border for migrations. Not many species do that. I did just read that there was a bull shark that went from South Africa to, was it Nigeria or Senegal or somewhere quite far north, and I think it might have just about crossed the equator. So some animals will do it, but a lot of shark and fish species tend to, if they're from particularly sort of subtropical areas, won't go all the way through the tropics all the way through the equator and then back out to the other subtropical kind of areas. So it'd be very unusual to get a great white shark do a north-south that far migration. But east-west, west-east, we haven't, I don't think, confirmed a South African shark in Australia since, but I know there was a question on discoveries and the most interesting from a migration. And we have in the last year, and I'm hoping it's out by the time the podcast comes out. It should be out any day now. We are documenting or have documented a migration between South Africa and Indonesia off Lombok, which was...
Of a great white?
Of a great white, yeah, which was a crazy story, really, in that I work with Maddie Stewart quite a bit in terms of she's looking for tags of sharks in Indonesian fisheries, and she's found some really interesting ones, including from WA. She found a tiger shark. Well, sorry, not a tiger shark. It wasn't a tiger shark in the end, but she found a spot tag. The types of tag that we use to track the movements with satellite. These tags bolt onto the fins of great whites, and they've got unique serial codes and IDs. And this one's was really clear and easy to read. So I use these tags, same type of tag, on tiger sharks. So I immediately looked through our serial numbers, and it was older than those. So it wasn't from us. And that's from the Shark Bay work and from the Midwest work and Northwest work that I've been doing. Wasn't a tag that I'd put on a tiger shark. Checked with Lou Ferreira from Ames, who did a bunch of tiger shark tagging with the same types of tags around the same time that this ID looked like it was produced. Not one that she had used. Adam Barnett is on the East Coast, and he's tagged a lot of tiger sharks too with these tags. Didn't correspond to any of his, and it was kind of a mystery, and it was going back and forward till my friend Dylan Irons from South Africa messaged me, because he'd also been helping go back and forth. He was like, "No, Ollie, it's your tag. You put that tag on it." I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "On a great white in South Africa in 2012." I was like, "What? Like, no way!" And it has a name. It's called Alicia, and it was a shark. I remember tagging that shark. Specifically, remember tagging that shark in South Africa at Dyer Island, the place where I did my master's research.
Yeah.
We worked with the O-Search, the big ship that comes around and has a platform to work with sharks, and that was one of 16 great whites that we tagged and tracked in the Gansbaai area in that time, and we had tracked her for a couple of years in this, like, weirdly enough, sort of Southern Ocean kind of or Atlantic, a little bit of Indian Ocean, but like quite far south of South Africa is where she spent most of her time when we were tracking her. And then the tag dies, and, you know, she's been gone for another 5 years after that. And so 7 years after tagging, she was caught by a fisherman in Indonesia, and she had been caught because she ate an entire bull shark, like 2.5, 7 meter bull, like adult bull shark was caught on the line, and she's come along and eaten it. I think she was over 5 meters.
It's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. And not much bigger than her. She was about as big as a great white gets when she was caught.
What's that, 5-6 meters?
Oh, she was close to 5, I think, somewhere around the 5 meter mark.
Wow.
And she was 4 meters when we caught her, I think. I should probably know this because it's going to be a published study, but I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. But I think she was about 394 when she was caught by us and measured on the boat. And then when she was measured by the fisherman, I think 4.7-ish off the top of my head. Very close to 5 meters in the pictures.
Such a big fish.
Massive fish.
Yeah. So fishermen killed her. It was a sad.
He did kill her, yeah. She was...
did they eat them?
I believe they did, yeah. I think she did get eaten.
Did you... on the last time on the podcast, we spoke about how old does a great white get, and there's no really, like, it's hard to age them. Yeah,
there's only really one solid study, and it's older than that podcast, so it'd be probably 10 years ago now, maybe. And yeah, we know like 70s-ish, but possibly a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
We just need to have more samples.
So you couldn't get a sample from.
I believe there's a tooth.
But with the teeth, because they shed something like 30,000 teeth in their lifetime or something like that.
Yeah, you can't age them from those.
Yeah.
You need
Vertebrae.
like a piece of the vertebrae. Yeah. So obviously it has to be dead. But I don't think there's anything like that left of this shark.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of teeth. Maddie got a picture of one on a necklace.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they let her keep, but I think just to like show her that this was from this shark.
Yeah.
And from that, you can do quite a bit. You can do stabilized isotope work. I think you can get a bit of genetic material from the tooth too.
That's crazy that that's traveled that far and it's living in warm water environments. And especially a lot of people go to Indonesia and all that for diving.
Don't think of them.
You don't think you would be expecting to see a great white.
In fact, Nusa Penida, there was a great white on a dive. Also a very, very big great white too. Maybe a couple of months ago now.
Oh, really?
Someone videoed one. Yeah, definitely a big, big great white. Also, like everyone's like, wow, I never expected to find one there.
Yeah.
And actually, there's this one and there was another one a few years back that got published as well that about a 5 meter great white was caught somewhere off one of the islands of Indonesia.
Right. Wow. And then did you know if they've come from South Africa or California or? Yeah,
that one they haven't done any genetic work, but they perhaps should because it would make sense if it was part of the same population as this one that was just caught, which would be Southern Africa. But I mean, we're also very close to Western Australia there.
Yeah.
So it could be one from the West Australia, South Australia population that's just migrated a bit further north than we expect.
Yeah, because they would have to mix populations at some stage, right? So there would have to be a few making the journey across.
Yeah, I believe it's around like 5 or 6% in one study that had sort of South African looking signatures in their genetic makeup.
Yeah.
The last time a sort of population-wide Australian study was done.
Yeah. Are these population studies as well? Like, is there a rough estimate of how many great whites are out there?
Yeah. Sometimes they do that. Yeah, not all of them do that, but you can make an estimate using phylogenealogy, which I don't fully understand, not being a geneticist. I've used mark recapture on fin IDs to estimate local populations. And we're getting numbers around like 1,000 in an aggregation over a 5-year period.
In South Africa?
That was a specific area of South Africa. And so, you can extrapolate that with everyone else's estimates, probably like 2,000-3,000, but you're only looking at a small portion of the population at that stage, only a small demographic, not the full size from the very smallest to the very largest. That's more difficult to do. When they did it using the genetic approaches in Australia, and I believe without having the numbers in front of me, that it was a few thousand with a few hundred for the sort of adult breeding population. For whites, and this was
in WA, or
I think it was more on the East Coast. I think in WA they were looking at more like 2,000 with again a few like high hundreds, but number of like breeding individuals. Right. But then when you consider it's like large coast, I mean Western Australia's coastline on its own is huge. If you consider the whole continent of Australia and New Zealand, which is what they were looking at, the numbers weren't massive.
No, they're like. It sounds a lot, but it's like also doesn't sound like much if you think of like fish populations, millions or something.
Yeah, and you think of like how many sharks could be caught on a shark fishing vessel on a single expedition could be quite high. Yeah. The fisheries vessel that I was working on was a lot. They weren't great whites, but
is that so? They're quite solitary animals, are they, or are they?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah, so they are solitary, we think, great whites, but they do quite like hanging around in aggregation areas, particularly when they're juvenile. So you can find areas in say, California, Emily Spurgeon is someone who I work with a lot, and she works with juvenile white sharks for her masters, and she works a bit with her PhD on them as well. And in her masters, she tagged a whole bunch that stayed in tiny areas, which means you can acoustically track them. Like you put the acoustic tags that ping on the shark, and you put you should have 20, 30 listening stations sort of along the coastline, and within a few kilometers or so, she was getting 95% of the shark's movements were within that array. So for not just months, sometimes months and months and months on end, you've got the entire shark's life in this small area, which is incredible. You can do incredible work with that, and they are doing incredible work. That's out of the Cal State Long Beach Shark Lab.
Okay.
And they've got like massive amounts of data of these sharks right next to each other, you know, like the sharks move in those aggregations back and forward, and, you know, you'd assume that, you know, they're seeing other sharks. They know there's other sharks there. So there's some sort of societal thing there, but we don't think they're like really communicating much with each other. They're not migrating with each other. They migrate alone. But there's some comfort in other sharks being around.
What sort of tips them to start migrating? Is it like they just have temperatures, or they just know that there's like a...
She's got a paper on thermal cues sometimes are.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not just sharks. A lot of species have thermal optimums, like a temperature range where they work really well. Like, and that's your digestion. That's everything. That's your comfort. Like,
to a species or to an individual?
Usually to a species. I mean, individuals will maybe swing a bit. I mean, I guess we're like an example of a really like diverse species where like our temperature changes from like me to you. We have very different individual tolerances as people, and that's been built up from like years of where you've lived, but also where your ancestry has lived as well. Like, we can be very individualistic, but sharks and wildlife, maybe less so, maybe a bit. Regional populations might, and individuals might have a bit, but in general, it's sort of pretty much the same across the species, or at least for the size class, size, sex, demographics. If you've got the same size and same sex as another shark, then you're probably going to have a similar thermal optimum threshold. So it's probably going to be similar. And so they've seen in those aggregations where they had the sharks swimming around for months, and then the temperature suddenly dropped or risen, they've all immigrated to almost the exact same spot, and they found them in another array where there's another aggregation of juvenile or subadult white sharks, and they'll hang around there until the temperature goes back to normal, and then they go back to their preferred habitat.
Right. And how far is some of these, like not far, or?
Those ones weren't as big as like, say, you know, some of the like mass migrations that we've been talking about, but I think probably tens of kilometers, maybe a couple 100 kilometers.
Yeah, right.
Distance.
You've mentioned, I'm going to just go off topic because you mentioned different types of tags that you use. What are the different types of tags? How do they work? And what is the information you're trying to find out from each type of tag?
Yeah, so it's all about information, right? So you know, you shouldn't, and it wouldn't be advisable to just go and stick any tag on any animal, like to be able to do it. And it's, you know, it's a privilege too. You know, you have to really have a research question or a conservation goal. There has to be a very specific reason to put a tag on an animal. And that's why we have animal ethics boards, and that's why I have university boards that judge if your research is worthy of a project first say degree, and the level, and ethics boards will determine the numbers of animals that you can tag. You shouldn't over tag a population, but you shouldn't under tag either, otherwise the data's useless, right? So depending on the question will depend on the type of tag that we select and the information that we can gather from. Usually it's movement, but it's not always movement. Sometimes it's energetics. Sometimes it's mortality. There are types of tag that can tell when a fish gets eaten, for instance. But for most of my work, it's movement. And so the type of tag that I probably use the most in recent years has been acoustic tags. Acoustic telemetry is kind of what is overall labeled as. And the way these tags work, they get by the problem of water. You can't send a radio signal, you can't send a satellite transmission through water. The water gets in the way. And so to get by this, most fish tagging is using sound, acoustic sound, click. And these tags will click a code that has the ID of the tag. If it's got the sensors on, you could have depth, temperature, you can have acceleration as another sensor, and it will ping all of these sensor data points and the ID out every 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes or so. And if you have a listening station nearby, you can hear that, you can decode it, and you can log that shark or fish was swimming, or even turtles and dugongs have been fit with these tags. Animal was swimming at this depth and this temperature at this time. And then another animal swims by with its coded tag, and it IDs that animal was swimming this time, this place, this temperature, this depth. And gradually you can build up a picture of what animals are using what area. You can build up some of those migrations. If this animal is detected Port Lincoln, and then if it's detected again in Exmouth Gulf, quite a long way, but there's listening stations in both of those areas that can pick them up.
Are these tags clipped onto their fin, or are they surgically placed inside?
It depends on the animal. So we surgically place a lot of these tags because we're able to catch and handle the sharks and the animals that we're doing it to. With turtles, they can be glued to the carapace or surgically implanted. If you're not able to catch the shark, so some of the great whites or whale sharks, sometimes they're attached with a spear and a tether, spear tip and tether. So like kind of a dart tag fits in place. And with dugongs, I think they're actually part of a like kind of strap to the tail tethered system. I've never tagged a dugong, but I believe that's how they do it. An acoustic tag fits somewhere in the tether or the harness or the satellite tag. They fit the acoustic tag in somewhere there as well.
Yeah, we were tagging bull sharks in the Swan, and we were surgically putting them in that.
Yeah,
they were acoustic tags.
Yeah, and they were probably there's the small bull sharks, the ones in there.
Yeah, they were all less than a meter.
So I'm not sure if you were probably not putting the 10-year one in, but maybe like
we are.
Oh, the 10-year one fits in.
Yeah. We first a few years ago put like a 2-year one.
Yeah.
And then we moved to I'm a part of the project, but only in terms of the catching of it.
Yeah.
They moved to the 10-year one.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff though. They all stayed in there year round.
Yeah. Well,
circles.
That's kind of my understanding for sort of bull sharks in river systems. Same with sawfish as well up north, and the only place I've done that is in the Kimberley with Murdoch and with Adrian Glass and Chrysalis, I should add. Those bull sharks are kind of trapped by the dry season, but they would stay there for a few years until they're big enough or confident enough to go out into the open ocean, and then they'll migrate into the ocean, and they won't really come back again into the rivers once they leave.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Only perhaps to pup.
Yeah. So we haven't had the tags in long enough to see if they would come back in because they're all, juveniles. Yeah. But fisheries one was quite interesting. So they tagged a 3-meter one just before Christmas, and they in the Swan, and that went out of the Swan, went into Warnbro Sound, hang there for a while. Then it went to Bunbury, came back to Warnbro Sound, then back into the Swan River. And then I don't know how long it stayed in the Swan River for, and then it might have come back out and back into Warnbro Sound. But from what I heard was that there's a big accumulation or hotspot, let's say, of sharks in Warnbro Sound. Have you found that with any of the ones you've tagged around here?
I haven't heard of any of the ones that we've tagged being detected there. But then again, some of them are like quite recent and we're only just starting to get the data.
Yeah, okay.
So not yet for any of the tigers, but if that's something that, and I don't know if that's, we'll have to tag more bull sharks to see if that's like that individual's preference or if there's other ones that like doing that. Certainly bull sharks are a species we need more tagging on because we don't have enough data.
Yeah.
And that's why those 10-year tags are so good, because if those animals stay alive, you're going to get every life stage of the animal, from like very juvenile to when it starts to venture out into the ocean for the first time, to hopefully those big migrations and those long periods of time where it's here, there, or wherever. If we have enough listening stations across the coastline, we should be able to follow that animal for 10 years, or all of them, hopefully.
Have you seen between different species ones that migrate more and one of the more site? Like I'm assuming whaler sharks would be more site, well, they would stay in the same areas. They wouldn't migrate as much.
I would say probably more the other way around. A lot of whales, particularly in the pelagic areas, the whalers will come all the way through. And I mean, but bull sharks are a type of whaler too.
Yeah.
Just they're kind of like off to the side. They're a bit more unique than the average ones. Whereas like bronzies, duskies, blacktips, the blacktip whaler anyway, they're all very similar looking, and they tend to make, I mean, the dusky sharks, we think, kind of just wander all around Australia, and it also like,
oh really?
Yeah, they've got very mixed. Are they
different ones from oceanic pelagic ones to the ones that we see at, like, is there a behavior learnt from sharks that where they know there's a lot of fishing practices or food like in an area, and they'll just stay there because of that?
Oh, there is a bit of that, yeah, for sure. Fish on a line are like really easy feeding. So yeah, there's a few spots where that might happen, but as a species, and also we also call them all bronzies. Like everything's a bronzy.
Yeah.
But it's not, I mean, like bronzies don't even occur in the far northwest. Like they're almost all blacktip whalers or dusky sharks.
Yeah, right.
And so it's very hard, even if you catch them sometimes. The blacktip whaler's a little bit easier. It's blacktips. And it's a bit spotty sometimes.
Well, there's a lot of sharks with black tips.
There's a lot of sharks.
I've just done work.
I mean, there's black tips on their own. Like there's the blacktip whaler, there's which is obscurus, and there's the blacktip reef, obviously, and then there's two other. There's the Australian blacktip, and then there's like the kind of possibly they even hybridize as well, which makes it even more tricky.
Well, we're catching a lot of nervous sharks.
Oh yeah,
in the creeks up north.
Yeah,
and I was like looking at it, I was like, this one looks different to this one. This one, like, these are a nightmare to ID.
Yeah, like they could even be different ones, like a nervous whale also like, looks like any other juvenile shark as well. And even though they're not juveniles, they're just a really small species. But there's ones, and there's also there's one that looks a lot like a bull shark. That's a pig eye, which is another whaler. And
right.
Yeah, I don't know. They look so similar sometimes. There's a few things, but you're really sort of like looking at the pictures back and forward, like unless you've got them next to each other. Same with a bronzy and a dusky. You've got bronzy and dusky on the boat together, and you can check. There's an interdorsal ridge which you can check for on the dusky. Someone's gonna, if I get that the wrong way around, someone's gonna.
No, I think that sounds right.
Yeah, so those two you can tell apart. But really, you got to catch them to do that. It's very hard to see that in the water, and sometimes very hard between a pig eye and a bull. And I kind of figured a pig eye has just evolved to just be the sheep in the wolf's clothing. Let's look like the really tough shark, because they're not. They're not anywhere near as dangerous as perhaps a bull shark could be, but they do look a lot like that more sort of fearsome reputation species.
There's also I'm only just gone about lookalike sharks, but the one that looks like a baby great white.
Oh, a poor beagle.
Yeah, is that what it is? Yeah, to be honest with the name, I wouldn't know it.
Yeah. I think we might have even been talking about that somewhere the other day. Yeah, it's a poor beagle.
Right. I do have a question going back to about the sharks hanging around like fishman areas. You always hear stories of like, oh, there's a resident bull shark here, or there's a resident. Actually, I just came back from a place on the south coast, and the farm owner, he reckons that there's a resident great white that hangs out off the point, and I go diving off that point, spearing, and he's like, he thinks I'm a madman because he's like, there's a resident great white that hangs off there. Is there truth to that? Is there resident sharks? Or do they just move around?
yes and no. Like, is everyone always right when they say that? Like, definitely not. But you can get some residential sharks, and it's not so much that they do move around a lot, but great whites in particular, and it's usually we're talking about places where there's a real reliable abundance of seals. But there's a couple of great whites. You go to the places I've worked with them, California and South Africa, where seasonally, and it would be a season thing, but you could look out for. There's two that I tagged in my masters, and they were well-known ones. One had been satellite tagged before, and he was missing the top of his tail, so he was very distinct. He was called Zane. Zane would be in this area called Shark Alley because it's between two islands, and there's a big seal colony there. He would be in that channel for most of the winter months every year. And he was satellite tagged, 2003, 2004. He was up there until I left the country. I saw him last in 2014. So 10 years later, same channel, same shark, same great white. But he would migrate. So he'd be there for his winters. He would come there and eat his seals, and we tracked him, and he had very, very small home ranges. But then he would go, and he'd be gone for 6-7 months somewhere else. This other one, Slashfin, do the same. That one, back end of the island, pretty much sure he'll be there. Tag him, and he's got a small home range. They were still moving to other areas of the aggregation, but the aggregation itself, most days they would be somewhere within it. Nighttime, maybe move somewhere else and come back for the next day. And there's a great white off California, off Tamales Point. He had the nickname Mr. Burns. They're all nicknames, these names. They're not. The shark doesn't know it's called this. No, we're calling it this. But that just kind of helps us ID the animal. Like, I don't write those names in papers because it's not scientific really.
All the bull sharks we were tagging in this one, we were giving them names.
It's got use. It's got use. It helps. It also helps you remember, I tagged this shark on that day. It can also help for getting donations towards a shark if you have adoption programs and stuff. There's a lot of reasons why it's good to name an animal that you're tagging, but it just doesn't necessarily mean that you own that shark or anything like that. And with these ones, it just really helps. It helps trigger that memory, trigger that story of I tagged this shark at this point. And this big male white, but all of these were male sharks actually, come to think of it. It's not that you couldn't see the same thing with a female, but this other male great white off California, there's an area where there's lots of harbour seals, and that's somewhere I worked for my PhD, and that was the first shark I saw in California, and he was there every year that I was there. He would be somewhere off that point quite regularly. It's not that he lives there, but he does live there. He's pretty residential there each year for a number of months, and then he does his migrations as well. So.
Do you think they're social?
That's debated, and there's lots of people looking at that kind of question. There's definitely, it depends how you define sociality. I mean, they must recognize each other because, if you're somewhere for long enough, you do recognize individuals. We could recognize individuals just from their dorsal fins alone. And there can be, people you like, people you don't like.
And they've shown that behavior, or is it like territorial?
Potentially, not so much territorial, but maybe just like a dislike of personal space. I've seen sharks not like each other and back away from each other. And the same sharks a couple of times have done it.
What do you mean back away? Do they show do they have a little fight, or do they just kind of what do they do?
Two I'm thinking of two big female sharks, and they kind of just splashed at each other and swam in the opposite directions. But
on the surface?
The surface. I mean, so one time was baited situation where we were trying to tag one, and we did tag one of them. And then the other situation, we saw these were two quite distinct sharks. We were tracking this one, following it around, because it had an acoustic tag on, and we had a listening station on the boat this time. We saw this other big, she had a bent fin. She was called Roxanne. So she also had a nickname. What we had was called nicknamed Tigress. So the two big females in the area, and they had this kind of little bit of a dispute when we had been trying to tag one of them, and then those same two sharks came up towards each other and they splashed their tails at each other and they both swam away from each other. It was like, okay, so maybe they actually don't like each other, these two. It could be they're both the same size and they're both pretty big. So they both want to be dominant, or it could be that, like there's something about like one tried to bite one another time and it recognizes it. So there could be bits of that, and that's a form of socialization, it's not a friendly one. So there's evidence for that, and then other people have looked at tagging the same sharks in the same areas. Yanni Papastamatu, who's at FIU in Florida, he put camera tags on a bunch of great whites and then looked at their interactions with each other too. And there's some evidence there. A lot of people have worked with lemon sharks as well and looked at that, but it's a term that we think of when we think of people and socializing. It's not quite the same thing in wildlife, and they're not a species that school great whites. They don't school and swim together. Duskies do sometimes.
What about
bronzies?
How do they breed? Like,
how do great whites breed?
Yeah, like do they have multiple males or females contesting each other, or do they aggregate, or is it just like they swimming around, they find their one, and then that's it?
We don't know. But there are some interesting findings, like siblings. So you can look at sibling pairs, and they have found different generations of siblings, which means, same female, same mother, same father, different generation. So the same two great whites have found each other and mated with each other more than once.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that poses questions as to how does that happen. So, like a seasonal breeding ground, perhaps, and perhaps it's chance. Perhaps there's actually not that many breeding level males and females, and actually the same male and same female produce quite a few. Or is it just a random chance thing? I mean, there has to be some chance in that too. Or maybe a bit like that, like these two have mated before, so they're not like, maybe they recognize each other not as like an aggressive threat to each other when they're in one of those aggregations. We assume there's some kind of aggregating for breeding, but we don't know. Squid and octopus can sometimes store sperm, or other animals can store fertilized eggs. And maybe I don't know if that's even possible because it's going beyond my expertise, but is that occurring?
Can females clone them? Like, how some sharks can just produce a baby?
Hammerheads can do it. We don't know how many other species can do it. And like I was saying with the black tips, they can hybridize, which, I mean, they're very similar species, but that was a new discovery. Like, it's more than 10 years since that one, but more than 10 years since the hammerhead gave birth with no male ever being present.
Yeah.
We don't know how many species. It's a crazy adaptation. It is a crazy adaptation.
Do they become infertile, the ones that the offspring?
Without really knowing, I've heard that their health isn't very good. So I don't think they actually have raised one to maturity from there. And it's only been a couple of times. They'd already be in captivity anyway, so there'd already be that kind of stress of not being in a natural environment. I guess you wouldn't know when they're out in the wild, would you? Yeah, particularly like for a hammerhead shark. It's one of those species that probably doesn't do that well in captivity. So it probably already wasn't a very healthy female, the parent shark at the time of giving birth. Yeah. I know in plants, they will like produce clone offspring when they're on the verge of dying to try to like push out. Was that sort of the same case? Or? As far as I know, they never really talked much about the female, the mother in that case. I mean, obviously the clone would be a female too. Yeah. So I don't know how healthy that shark was. Okay. And I've heard it's happened since with a couple of other species, but I'm not aware of the studies and I'm not aware of the details with them. I can't even remember exactly where that happened. Yeah. But yeah, it's a species that's probably never going to be like that healthy in captivity.
Going back to tags, you've put camera tags on sharks as well and tracked their movements. And you had one that went very viral
Yes.
That was on the news. It was everywhere.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if was that before last podcast.
I think wasn't that the purpose of the podcast last time, wasn't it? To
Was it?
Like I think that was the draw. I think that paper had probably just come out.
Right.
It was a 2019 paper. So.
Oh, right. Well, it probably was then.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go over it again.
Yeah.
I kind of felt it was.
I wonder if that was the spark that because it started, there was a lot of media interest in that particular article. And that was, the great white that swam through kelp forest. It wasn't the only one.
Why was it such a big finding?
Well, people didn't really believe it was going to happen. Like, I'd spent a lot of time in that aggregation, that area. There's again in Hansby and Dyer Island, and we spent lots of time tagging and tracking sharks, including those 2 males that we were talking about. A lot of them went into near foraged on around kelp forest, where the seals were also hiding. There was several studies that we did before we did the camera tagging, and we knew that the kelp was a really interesting thing because, Ali Towner, my colleague and I had spent entire days tracking sharks through kelp forest, big great whites through kelp forest, and people were telling us that doesn't happen. And we saw it happen with our own eyes. We saw them cutting through the forest. We saw them going up and down, moving back through. We'd have to drive the boat around sometimes. Sometimes you lose your signal from the tag because the kelp forest is so thick that you can't get a transmission. You can't hear it. But people were telling us, no, they don't go into the kelp forest. You're wrong. And that's something that went around. Kelp is a barrier to sharks. Some people still to this day say that.
Even with video evidence.
And there was conspiracy theories that we made that stuff up, that we caught one guy who I know from that town, who I'd speak to often when I went by him. Was on Facebook. I got sent by my friend Ali on the Hansby Facebook group, saying that we hooked the shark, we pulled it into the kelp forest, and then we let it go. So of course it swam out of the kelp forest. So that footage.
Why? Why would?
We didn't release all of the footage. I mean, the footage has been scored and documented, how much time each individual shark spent around kelp forest, every time it made contact with the kelp forest, every time it swam through it, the footage with it chasing the seals. I mean, there's also seals there too, right? I mean, did we catch the seal? I mean, anyway, the footage was hours after we had left.
Yeah.
We were long gone. And also we try not to disturb the sharks at all. We want to get their natural movement. So we tag them and then we move away. And so we tagged that shark and we left the area. We were home, I think, by the time any of that stuff happened. But yeah. People didn't want to believe it. And some people still didn't believe it even when they're given by. I mean, that's the same with anything. Some people really don't want to believe stuff, particularly around science, it seems. So all you can do is give them the facts. There's the footage. There's the shark swimming through it. Here's its track. Here's its energetics. Here's the moment, the time that it did it. And some people were really surprised. Other people messaged me from all over the world. There was a guy from Tasmania who messaged me and said, years ago, I was diving in a kelp forest and a great white popped in and swam around and then swam back out. And again, people were telling him that doesn't happen. And he wasn't expected to see it, but he said it happened and it was a great experience. And it was years and years before. And he's like, now I can show people that.
Yeah.
Now I can show them. Yeah. There's a great sort of cult media following of that paper and that footage. It was in Shark Week and other people made artwork out of it. And so it's quite touching, towards the end of my PhD to actually go back and have a look through and find some of that artwork that people have made of the sharks in the kelp. And one of them actually I became friends with one of them who made a little infographic artwork of that study.
Right.
Yeah.
You just mentioned Shark Week. Have you been a part of a few of them?
I may have been on Shark Week once or twice here or there. Yeah.
What's your view? Because I've had some interesting conversations with people.
Yeah. And I can imagine them. And yeah, it can be pretty frustrating at times without getting myself blacklisted forever. Some of the shows don't really have a scientific focus.
Yes.
And by some you could say a lot of them. Some do though. Some producers are making some good shows, and my friend who I mentioned earlier, Ali Towner, has worked a lot with Shark Week, and she's also documented these couple of killer whales that have been killing a lot of great whites, and she's done a lot of shows about that. But she had me come back to South Africa after COVID, after not being there for many years, at Strathspey, which is a town right on the southern tip, just a little bit further around from Gansbaai, where I'd been to many times when I lived in South Africa. We'd done a little bit of shark work there. We tried to tag some once, but hadn't been back. And anyway, she had quite a few sharks around that area that she was working with, and she wanted to camera tag them. So I went back and I bought some camera tags, and we tagged a bunch of them. We tagged, I think we found 12 sharks in the end, and we tagged with cameras about 6 of them. We've got some pretty cool footage, pretty cool energetics, pretty cool data.
You've mentioned energetics a couple of times. That's just the movement of when they're feeding, hunting, going up and down the water column.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much how an animal uses its energy, and you can go all the way down to metabolism, which is something that Adrian Gleiss, Evan Burns, people from Murdoch do a lot of that kind of work. Whereas from my side, it's more like foraging. It's budgets of activity that they use, more active in the day or the night, or how they're actually chasing the seals.
So from these camera tags, but also were they more active at night or during the day?
It depends on the species. It depends on the place, depends on the individual. A lot of factors control that. It depends on the temperature too. Right. Sometimes it depends on the tide in certain species. Great whites, general, we found a basal trend, and I don't know, maybe this paper will be I doubt it's going to be published by the time of this podcast, because I've been waiting for years for this paper to be published. But yeah, we've got like kind of a basal rhythm, a circadian rhythm in white shark activity that we've found in every aggregation. So that's
sleeping at night, hunting at day, or
kind of? Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say sleeping, because sleeping is still being defined in sharks. They do it. Like, spoiler alert, like that's what the studies are showing, and that's what we've kind of always known, that sharks do sleep. But it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily always in an area where you can sleep. So you're not necessarily able to sleep in an area, but you're certainly able to rest, have more restful and more active times. Mm-hmm. And again, in an individual circumstances, where it is, what's around it will affect when it does that. But we tagged sharks in great whites in South Australia, in South Africa, in California, and in Cape Cod off the East Coast. And in all those data sets, there was a sort of basal rhythm of higher and lower activity. And in all cases, except set one was a little bit like dawn, pre-dawn. But in all cases, the lower levels were in the night and the higher levels were in the day. And that would shift a bit. Like Cape Cod was the one where it was a bit earlier. And there we know the seals there, the grey seals, are trying to go and come back before dawn to avoid the great whites. And so the great whites are shifting their activity slightly that way too. But a lot of them were straight up in the day and straight down at night, similar to what you would see on a human species, or human population, I should say. Some of us work night shifts. Some of us are early risers, some of us are late risers. But if you plotted all of our activities as a whole, you'd see generally a higher activity in the day than the night. And that seems to be what we can see with great whites.
Is that because they're more visual hunters, or do they use their ampullae of Lorenzi?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I say. It sounds roughly like how I would say it. So we'll just go with yes. So someone can correct us later. Great whites, more visual.
Are different sharks like more visual to or more using sensors? I know obviously like the green shark, which can have a parasite in its eyes.
Oh yeah, Greenland shark. Greenland
shark. Sorry, what did I say?
Green shark.
Green shark.
I was wondering whether I was like, what's a green shark?
I said half of it.
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah. That's the oldest.
Is it green eyes? The small sharks that they get out in the deep? A lot of there's different types. Goblin sharks. There's I don't know them all. There could be a green shark for all I know. Yeah. Some might have called one.
Anyway. There's a green swordfish.
Yes, there is.
So we just
Yeah.
there's some basis there.
Yeah.
Anyway, where were we? Oh, sensors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get blind sharks. Greenland sharks are pretty blind, but they're also pretty slow, and they're also hunting very slow animals.
Yeah. So they're obviously using their sensors for that. Great whites are mainly visual.
But they've got eyes that are adapted to low light levels too. They spend time in really deep waters, and they absolutely can forage at night. But they are one of the more reliant on eyesight, more visual predators than, say, a hammerhead, which will use its eyes as a visual predator too, but has an amazing ampullae of Lorenzini, has an amazing electrical receptors, and will also like look to dig up stingrays when they're buried in the sand and whatnot. And also,
that's what they're mainly feeding on, right? Is stingrays?
Yeah, and great hammerheads. I mean, there's quite a few different species of hammerhead, but great hammerheads they love to eat other sharks too. So they'll smash anything kind of smaller than them. Like you wouldn't want to be a shark hanging around a great hammerhead. They eat lots of other sharks. They eat tarpon as well in Florida and those kind of areas. But great hammerheads love to eat small sharks.
Right. Do great whites mainly eat like seals and stuff because they've got a higher calorie need, or?
You could think, and they've got some adaptations to that too. Great whites are partially warm-blooded, so they've got a higher energetic demand than, say, a tiger shark. So they need to eat more. Seal's a great source of calories, rich blubber. Like they're great. So are whales too. Whales are just a bit harder to kill. So they'll rely on other means of whales dying. In this day and age, ship strikes are like a big cause of whale mortality, or even entanglements. And you see like injured whales will get chased by, well, not chased, but they'll be followed by a lot of sharks. It's not just great whites. Every shark would love to eat a bit of whale if it could.
Oh yeah. With so I just forgotten my question halfway through about asking it. What was it? Oh, something about great whites. I'm going to move on because I completely forgot.
Edit that one out later.
I completely forgot.
I know we're talking about camera tags a bit still.
Oh yeah, what have you seen? Because I didn't actually what are some of the cool things you've seen with camera tags?
We see things like great whites interacting with each other is great, which is what Yanni's paper that we mentioned earlier was from Guadalupe. He focused on that. We didn't focus on that so much because, the white shark camera tagging one that I published was based around seals and kelp, but we also had a lot of other great whites seen, and how they interact with each other is pretty interesting. Are
they always aggressive?
Aggressive. They follow each other even, like especially along the bottom. One sees one and it would keep its distance, but it would just follow it along a bit, maybe see if it's checking out some other food areas. If that one's going to catch a seal, maybe that's a good place to catch a seal. There seems to be some learning from each other.
Oh, really? There. Like small ones with larger ones, or
probably around the same kind of size, but yeah, there could be smaller ones learning from larger ones, particularly when they come to an aggregation. Smaller ones, I think, are a little bit afraid of larger ones. They're certainly less dominant, and I kind of understand why. As a kid hanging around like adults that might fight each other and stuff, you're very vulnerable. So there definitely is reasons to avoid where the adults hang out. But they could also learn how to catch a seal from an adult, perhaps, or where there's good foraging.
There's no maternal or paternal care with them.
There's none at all. So you also, a risk.
How big are they when they're born?
About 1 and a bit meters, 1.1 to 1.4 maybe. A few different sort of suggestions have been made, maybe just under a meter. Very rarely seen though. So.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's already a big fish, yeah.
Yeah, I was like gobsmacked by how big bull sharks were when we were first catching. I thought, oh yeah, they'll be a year or 2 years old, but no, they were like, it's probably only a month or 2 months old, and they're already like 80 centimeters.
Yeah, they get stucky quick.
That's just a huge.
Yeah, and about like when they get just a bit over a meter and a bit, 1.3 or so, then they start to form that bulk, that big wedge that goes along the back of they start to look like a bull shark around that size. You're like, whoa.
Yeah. What about shark mitigation things? Like the shark shield, or people use, there's a lot of them out now about magnets. Do you know if like how effective these things are, or?
Yeah, shark shield's like been relatively well tested. Unfortunately, the company has gone bust, so you struggle to get them now. And look, well, they're good for detracting like a curious shark, a shark that's actually like in the middle of, when they put them on baits and stuff or towed them on decoys, like those would still get hit sometimes. So it's never complete fail safe. And some of the other things like the magnets to repel sharks, and I think that, I'm a big advocate for if it makes someone feel better in the water, great. Like we have an unrealistic expectation of risk, or perception of risk, I should say, with it. Like the chances are, as long as you're not in an aggregation zone, as long as you're not in spots where people have known that there are a lot of sharks and that it is more dangerous, like it is more dangerous in some parts of, say, South Australia than it would be on a beach in Perth, where we're very safe. But still, you should be shark aware. Try not to be on your own. Try not to be in really remote spots where there's nobody around, nobody knows where you are. Going out with your mates is always a good thing. And you should certainly, I think every time you go to sea, you should let someone know, whether you're boating, fishing, spearfishing, surfing. If you can do some things that make you feel better and help take that fear off your mind, because there's being aware and then there's being like overly anxious about it. We've been conditioned by media, even by Facebook, certainly by Shark Week, to be fearful of sharks. We don't necessarily need to be. You need to be like as hyper vigilant about sharks all the time. They don't always have to be in your mind, but they often are. Me too. Like I've seen Jaws when I was a very small kid, which kind of drove my career, but it also made me anxious in the water sometimes. Sometimes you have to try and take your mind off it. If you can do something to take your mind off it by wearing, like shark eyes as an example, doesn't really do anything for me as a shark scientist. I don't like necessarily believe that, but it's based on tigers in India and stuff, and whether or not that worked. Apparently it did work for tigers. Whether it actually works or not, as long as there isn't a scientist saying it definitely works when they haven't got the science to back it up. But if someone's saying, it makes me feel better about going in the water, I'm all for that. So I don't want to, crap on people's shark mitigation techniques. As long as they're not a scientist saying this definitely works without being able to prove it. Shark Shield did have some rigorous testing and was pretty good. Pretty big, pretty bulky. I know that I'm not going to say the name, but the one that is like a band one, for me, it looks a bit small. I haven't seen any rigorous testing.
Is this the one that sends out electro pulse still, or is this a magnet one?
Similar. I think it's, I don't know. I think it's more of an electrical one. That's based on, so it's based on what they did with the Shark Shield, but they haven't done the same kind of testing that I've seen. I haven't seen anything.
The pulse I imagine wouldn't be strong enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't think so, but it probably needs like a scientific testing. But I know they've used something similar. That same company's used them on fishing lines to reduce bycatch and bite off. And it seems like there's some positive things there. They might actually help reduce the bite off. But these things need to be like more independently studied and published by, you can't rely on like there's one particular barrier which uses magnets and looks like kelp forest, where the independent research is always done by, if you look at the patent owners, they're on every single one.
Yeah.
There's never been a study that proves anything or even looks at it like without there being a patent holder. You can't have an independent study with a patent holder on it.
No.
So it's very hard to come across these independent studies, and there's very few to back up these things. But there were some for Shark Shield. There was some for that. And
yeah, I did hear that. I did, in terms of shark mitigation, I did have a friend that was doing that, which is it's a topic, touchy subject. So I'm not actually sure what we're allowed to say about that results from that. But Yeah, I did know the shark shield with the electric pulse one was quite effective.
Yeah, and but not 100%. Like it's not like a silver bullet. But it is. I mean, it's from Western Australia, so we use it a lot here in Western Australia. A lot of divers use it, and you still have to be shark aware. But if it drops that anxiety, it helps you enjoy your diving a bit more. Everything we do has a risk, and we should perhaps be more aware on roads when we're driving because they're far more dangerous.
Do sharks hear your heartbeat? And would their behavior change if you're calm or
behavior? Sure. They'll absolutely see if you're moving erratically, they'll notice that compared to if you were swimming next to someone who's completely calm, they'd notice that there's a difference.
Yeah.
Detecting a heartbeat, I mean, maybe someone can prove me wrong with a study that shows it, but it's not.
Yeah, interesting. Because I spear a lot off Perth here, and there's so many sharks. I see more sharks off here than I do anywhere else along the coastline. And I don't know, I've always wondered what their behaviors. I've seen different behaviors. I had one day, it's going to sound bad, but chumming up. So I just had a fish and just throwing lots of fish scraps into the water, and I was in there, and there was a lot of small sharks between around 1 to 1.5 meters long, and they was just swimming around. They were fine. They were coming right up to me, just taking bits, pieces, and fine. And then a big one came, about a 3 meter. I'm going to call some type of probably a bronze whaler, maybe a dusky whaler,
maybe a black tip.
Yeah. And all the sharks, their behavior just changed. They just the small ones, they just come charging up from the bottom, trying to just come at me. And I was like, whoa, just they all just flipped like that.
Yeah. But the smaller ones are probably more nervous about that bigger one, but they don't want to, they clearly weren't nervous enough to leave completely. But they probably didn't want to hang around that big one much. So that would probably be the change in the smaller ones.
Well, why were they coming for me? Was it because it was
you probably had the bait nearest you, right?
Yeah, I did. When the big one came, I went, oh, you can have that.
Yeah.
And it just came through. It was a big buff brim, and it just ate it whole and just swam off. And once it swam off, they all calmed down again.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they probably thought you still had the bait on you, and they're trying to get it from you, but not messing with that big shark. So they probably still wanted a piece of the bait.
Okay.
But yeah, the big shark was probably keeping them from being more chilled. I've seen it from the air, flying over a shark cage diving boat, and you see it when you're next to the water too. Big shark comes, small ones back off. But one time I actually got to see it from above, happening live, where there was a shark that's about 5 meters, very big great white, just slowly swimming around the boat, and the bait and the cage is all on one side. So, everyone's looking in the same spot, and you would see the visibility wasn't very good. You see these little sharks coming up, and say little, probably 2.5 meter great whites. They would come up around the bait, around the decoy, the decoy just looks like a seal. But right where the cage is too, because they put the bait near the cage so people see the sharks. And so they'd be watching these two sharks come around, and the big one, you just watch it come all the way around the boat. And as it comes up, those little ones go straight down and disappear into the murky water. And then the big shark swims by, and it goes back around the other side, and the little sharks come back up. And it kind of sounds like what's happening with you and those sharks.
Yeah.
Big shark is dominant, and the little sharks not so much. So they change up their technique.
I kind of felt a little bit worried though that those little ones were ready to go me. Would that pack? Is there such thing as a pack behavior with sharks?
Yes and no, but they wouldn't go you. What they might do is you're still holding on to that bait. They might knock that bait out of your hands, and they'd be trying to eat that. But yeah, a little shark. There's also a thing with sharks and their gape, the size of their mouth. They won't go. They know they can't eat things bigger. I mean, 1.5 meter shark, for instance, is not going to get much food from you. You're too big for it. It can't eat you. So any kind of bites from really small sharks at people are usually a form of get away from me type aggression, like territorial, but body territory. You're too close to me. Or when fishermen get bit, just trying to get away from the fisherman.
Yeah.
Get back into the water. And in this case, it would be because you have bait on you that you might have got a little bit of a nip, but they would definitely be after the bait, not after you.
Yeah. Okay. when sharks are juveniles, are they like someone explained it to me the other day? It's like when you have a little baby, like a baby human, they're putting a lot of things in their mouths and just nipping at it. Do sharks do the same thing? Is that why there's...
People have said that about like particularly great whites, you know, when the small ones bite. They definitely feel things with their mouths. I've definitely seen them like chewing on bottles and floats and whatnot. So there might be a bit of something in that. But there can be like a whole number of reasons why they bite something.
Right. Okay.
Particularly those smaller sharks. Like again, like if they were biting you in that situation, they'd be trying to get the fish. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was thinking just in general because like I know a lot of great whites. They're still juveniles when they're 2 meters long.
Yeah.
Like
they're still
if
quite
they're
young.
just
They're still learning.
if they're, let's call it teething.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen one. You know, going back to South Africa again, you know, we were off an island and on one island there were seals, on one island there were penguins, and saw a juvenile, and it was documented as happening, but I saw it for the first time myself one day. Penguin coming along and the shark bites it and then it lets it go. The penguin jumps away, but like the penguin died a few seconds later from probably a bit of shock and a bit of blood loss. And I looked at that penguin because it floated like right towards us. So I picked it up and had just one single little bite from this great white and it let it go immediately. I imagine that great white probably had never seen a penguin before. The visibility wasn't very good and it didn't fully identify it until it had it in its mouth. But what's interesting with that is when we've put the camera tags on other bigger great whites, we've had them sometimes, one from California is one I'm thinking of now, that has gone almost like full breach speed from 15, 16 meters straight to the surface and then pulled away from what looks like a seal. And when you slow down the footage and look at it, it's a bird, it's a seabird. So it knows it doesn't want to bite that. It's going to get feathers in its mouth. It's not a good meal. It's not a prey item. And it pulls away. And that might be the difference between a small great white and a larger one, is that it's done that when it's younger. It has put it in its mouth. It has known that that's not food.
How accurate are they when they're feeding?
I mean, that was stunningly accurate. Like a few times I've seen, you know, in murky water, great whites go right up to birds and pull away. And you're like, well, it looked like a seal to me. I mean, I guess we're looking at it through the lens of a camera too. So we're also not getting the same clarity as you get with your eyes. But they're pretty accurate at not knowing, at knowing that it's a bird and not striking it.
Yeah. What about their precision of actually, like say if it was a seal, like their precision of, because to release those attacks, they would spend a lot of energy. So like, how many times do they, you know, if they're having 5 bursts of energy at a seal, do they get 5 out of 5, 1 out of 5?
Oh, you know, I've seen things that say it's like 50%, less than 50%, but then you look at like, it's like, where did they get this data from? Because to me, that's a really hard thing to define unless you've got a camera tag on and it's on the whole time, the whole way through the day, which they're not usually, and you see the same shark going for multiple seals. And then you tag the same shark the next day and the next day and the next day, and then you build up a profile of this shark. The people that say it's like 50%, maybe, but like I don't think anyone knows that for sure.
Yeah,
not with a great white. Definitely not with a great white. Maybe with other species and how successful they are at taking it. I think a lot of people have like guessed or thumbsucked somewhere along the line. I think that's a really hard thing to define, and it's beyond our scope, I would say.
How often are they feeding? Do they go for like, are they kind of like a reptile, or are they just feeding every day?
Well, they're not. They're more like a mammal in the sense of they're warm-blooded. So they can't sit like a crocodile can for a long period of time and not eat. But at the same time, they do seem to go long periods of time sometimes.
What's a long period?
Well, we're not sure they feed a lot on their migrations, and you know, there's migrations between California and they call it the White Shark Cafe offshore that can take a few weeks to get there. The one that swam between Australia and South Africa, it did it in how many days? About 60 days. You know, it's about 8 weeks maybe, where it's not eating that much along the way. maybe it comes across a school of something and it can get something, but not really feeding as much as it would do in, say, an aggregation area or at a reef or at an offshore atoll where there's lots of food. And when they feed on a whale, I think they can sustain themselves for maybe up to a month or so on a whale carcass. We've definitely seen it where one shark in South Africa ate 3 seals one night. And I think it came back and ate another seal the next morning.
Hungry fella.
Yeah, but then it sat in the reefs for quite a few days, like 4 or 5 days, and didn't feed, didn't go. Like there was 2 areas.
Is their digestion slower, or was it?
It's probably slower than ours.
Did the bones dissolve in their belly?
They do. So
Like, are they
parts of them do, yeah, and some of them.
Yeah.
So I've when we caught the same day that we tagged that one that went to Indonesia, we caught a big male that day too, who was. I think she was 3'9". I think he was like 4'2", but he was much bulkier, much heavier shark. He regurgitated a seal.
Oh, so they don't poo it out.
Well, they only have they do, but they have like the bottom of their stomach's tiny. So all the big hard things, all the bones, anything that isn't digestible, they regurgitate up. And he regurgitated up this like half digested rib cage of a seal, you know, like there wasn't much of it. It stank.
I was going to say.
It was a little bit of fur and it just the smell of that thing.
I can imagine very well.
One of the worst smelling things I've encountered in life. And another one, the stomach, but these 2 killer whales, you know, they killed a lot of great whites, killed a lot of other sharks as well, like cow sharks and even smoothhounds. You know, they've killed a lot of sharks in South Africa. But one of the ones they killed that I examined, I helped retrieve the carcass, was a big male, and he had some seals in his stomach, and his stomach was like hanging out. And then at one point it like opened up and all of the digestive juices, stomach juices just all like poured out onto the sand as really was like, you know? Like,
Oh, yeah.
And that was also like going back to South Africa after a long break. And someone said, "Oh, Ollie, you've been out the game a while, haven't you?" Damn it. Yeah. The insides, the stomachs of sharks smell horrendous.
So you've traveled a lot of places, done a lot of field work for sharks. What are some of your experiences? Like, have you had fails? Have you had? Well, I'm sure there has to be fails in there.
Oh, there's fails. Everywhere.
Yeah. Can you what's been like one of like? Whoop, just smack the mic. What's been something like amazing, and what's been a big fail?
Oh, what's been a big fail? You know, like sometimes you spend a hell of a lot of money putting together a field trip, and touch wood, I'm trying to think of one where we've been like, there's certainly been lots of trips where we haven't seen any great whites or any sharks when we've been trying to find and tag them. We had one to Exmouth Gulf the back end of last year where we had terrible weather and we only tagged 3 sharks, which for the investment of time that we put in, you'd say that trip was a bit of a disappointment. I've certainly driven up to Jurien Bay.
Has there been like in terms of a fail, not in terms of a failed trip, but like an incident?
Oh, an epic fail? Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, camera tags dropping in the water and then sinking. That's
they're
happened
expensive.
a few times. They're expensive. Yeah. And I mean, you get them back, you know. But but like, so they float and they're on a clamp that releases, but they're not, the clamp isn't buoyant. The clamp is designed to fall off and sink. And together, the package is just a bit negatively buoyant. So I always put a little bit of foam on the side of it just to float the whole thing. But, you know, in the early days, we didn't always do that. And some people don't do that anyway. And yeah, sometimes you miss the shark and they fall in and they sink and you just watch your camera tag go down. You'll get it back in a few days, but then you get the footage back and you just see it just like getting scrunched along the bottom of the seabed in a stormy sea. And, you know, that's happened a few times. I've got one. You've got me. I've now triggered a memory of an epic failure I had in the field, which would have made a nice paper as well, maybe even a chapter of my PhD. So we use different types of tags. We were saying, you know, like, and we use the camera tags, and that was part of my PhD. But But there's also a type called an pop-up archival tag, mini PAT, it's a mini version of the pop-up archival. And that has an accelerometer on it. But the way we attach those to something like a great white, usually it's a tethered tag. So it has a bit of like, fluctuation. It's got drag and it gets brushed about a bit. And we wanted to try and validate what signatures and acceleration from the tethered tag would look like compared to for the camera tag. So I was tasked with putting on a camera tag and a mini PAT at the same time, as was my colleague, Paul Connive. And we did it the first time, or was it the second time? Either way, we did it. We got the tags on the great whites at the same time, both tags on the same shark. And I remember the first time I did it was pretty good, like feeling. Shark swims around, get the camera tag on it. The camera tag doesn't always disturb the shark, so it swims around. Pulled up the archival tag, which goes on a spike and jabs in and definitely disturbs the shark. Tag the shark swims away, and we've got them both on it. It's like, yes, great. We're going to have the tagging effect from the spike because the accelerometer is already on, and we get the shark swimming around for a bit, chilled out, and then the tag goes on. It's how long does it take to come back to sort of normal behavior? But I'm used to, we call them saltwater switches on these tags, or the manufacturers call them saltwater switches, and they're basically two bolts that when the tag is underwater, there's a current that flows between them because salt water is conductive. When the tag comes up to the surface, that current's broken. Tag knows I'm above water and I'll start to transmit. And you get a signal sent, and if you've got satellite above, you get the position. The way the archival tags work is the same deal, but rather than bolts, there's actually like a little copper or steel ring that runs that. And I was told by my supervisor to paint the tag bright so it'd be easier to find because they're normally just grey. So I spray painted it orange and didn't think anything of it because the tags I'm used to have bolts, and this was the first time using these tags, and I had this little copper ring covered, and we got the camera tag back, and we should have got the mini PAT back a few days later. And we didn't. And we're like, where's this tag? And then he's like, Ollie, tell me how you like painted the tag. And I said, just sprayed it. It's like, so it would have covered that bit? And I was like, yes, it would have covered that bit.
Oh, no.
It's like, oh, no. The tag's not. So it did. He's like, it would chip off. And it did. It chipped off and we got the tag back. It did transmit. It did come back. It was just floating offshore and we picked it up. But it didn't ever turn on because it didn't ever know it was underwater in the first place. So we never got any data from that one. And the second one, we got them both on, again, camera tag, mini PAT tag. We were supposed to do it twice, like just two validations. Like maybe we get one. Camera tag pops off after like 4 or 5 days and we get that back. And then the mini PAT was about 6 or 7 days. So it stayed in exactly the same spot for those first few days. And then in the 2 days between when the camera and the mini PAT came off, the shark went miles and miles. I forget exactly how many nautical miles offshore it was, but it was a no-go. Like there's no chance in hell you were going to get that back. Like it would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars and hours to steam that far offshore. So both of them, we didn't get the mini PATs. We never validated that at all.
That's a good epic fail.
Yeah, that was a pretty epic fail. And they're not cheap either.
Yeah. So you would have had some pretty cool experiences as well. Like I guess nearly all of them would have been. Is there a highlight?
Oh, one highlight. Oh, geez. I don't know. Maybe seeing the first ever like big great white was a huge highlight. Like it was like like the first time I went to South Africa, I saw big sharks, big great whites, but not an adult. And you hear about them.
What's in that? Say an adult, because you're saying you saw a big great white.
Oh, this would be like in the 5 meter range plus.
Yeah.
In the first trip I did, they were like, the 3.5, 4 meter ones were the big ones. There's big fish. But it's not like those ones you read about in the books, you see the pictures of. Yeah. And, like when I was growing up, Jaws, Yeah. And one of the things that was striking about the first books that I read about sharks is that they're disappearing. And, I remember thinking as a small kid, I hope that I see one day. I hope they do stay around, like those really big ones. And then to see them, the first time I saw was a long time ago, 2008, in Mossel Bay at dusk at Seal Island. I was trusted to work the bait line because, you know, the guy, Ryan Johnson, was my supervisor for that trip, for that time. And he said, Ollie's worked with sharks before. He can work the line. And there's some pretty good names in shark science who were on the boat that day. Like, you know, we were all kids at the time. Like, we were all 20, 21. But I got to work the bait line. I thought that was like a real proud moment for me as really junior, you know, like just fresh out of my bachelor's. And this shark came up from the deep, and you could see it's white at its underside. It's what they call white sharks. It was coming just vertically straight towards the bait, really slow. It's glass off, sunset, and this shark swimming up towards the bait. And it's just bigger. Like, it's just getting like huge. And I went to pull the bait, and then it was like, no, wait. Let it get close. It comes right up and then swims by and just like eyes us and goes back down. And then it did it a second time a few minutes later. And then another one did it. And you can only tell the difference because one had like old bite marks by its side, by its gills.
Is that from breeding?
Probably. But, you know, yeah, probably. But we don't know for sure. But these two adult female sharks that were there hunting that dusk. And they both did the same thing, came up and then eyed and went down. And the only thing I could liken to, I just remember having this thought, like, you know, like at university we had an old Nintendo 64 and we've had Super Smash Brothers. And when you had the mushroom and then your character got massive, it was like one of those great whites had taken one of those, the toadstool mushrooms and just grown. Like everything about it was like, was characterized. Yeah. Like massive eyes, massive face. It was just blowing up. And I couldn't believe how big those two sharks were. And I remember thinking, you know, that kid in me was like, yeah, so they do still exist. Those big ones are still out there. And I kind of thought that every time, like maybe once a year, you know, we're working with great whites every day of the year in South Africa from sort of like almost that point onwards. Once a year or so, you'd see one like that and you'd be like, yeah, they're still out there. And then actually later in my career there, every single one of the really big ones that we saw was one that we had seen before it was really big. You know, we had it in our records.
Oh, really?
And I found towards the end, I found every one of the like 5 meter plus ones I found in our database, usually within a few minutes of looking.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes a bit longer.
So they can go relatively quickly then.
Actually, those ones surprised me. Yeah. That they got so big. So in my relatively short career, I was only in South Africa for 4.5, 5 years. And there was a couple that grew into really big sharks that were not really big sharks before we saw them. Well, when we first saw them. Yeah. So, a few of them do grow bigger.
I was told to ask you a story about Boof, the tiger shark.
Boof, the tiger shark, yeah.
Yeah, what is this story? I don't know anything about it.
You don't know anything about, you've never been to Ocean Park Aquarium.
I have. I have been there. Yeah, okay. That's the one in Shark Bay, right?
It is the one in Shark Bay. Yeah. And they occasionally have tiger sharks. And they had Boof for quite a while. So Boof got a reputation, you know, like he was there for a couple of years and a lot of people saw Boof. And I actually had never been to Ocean Park Aquarium at that time. We were up there with our project with UWA out to tag turtles, I think, on that trip. And a colleague of mine, Matt Fraser, he loves his coffee. And Ocean Park has I could get in trouble for like advertisement, but Ocean Park has the best coffee in Shark Bay, according to Matt. I didn't say it. I'm not biased, but it's pretty good coffee. So Matt was there to get coffee. I actually wasn't there. I think I was on the boat. For whatever reason, the team was in two different places. And they said, there's a tiger shark in the aquarium and we want to release it. Do you reckon you guys can tag it? And so Matt came back to me with this story, and it is my friends Stacey and Em from Ocean Park who were the ones, you know, suggesting that they're getting ready to release Boof because he's getting too big. Been in there a couple of years and he was around 2 and a bit meters. And so I came back with a yes, absolutely. And I know exactly the type of tag we're going to use. We're going to use a camera tag. And so we did, we planned that one for a little while. We were coming back to tag the sharks in a few months. I bought a camera tag. We ran out of time to release him, or did he maybe just didn't get caught one day. But I tagged him in the aquarium using the same kind of way that I tag great whites. It's basically like it's big, thing you use to pick up trash with. Looks like, like a trigger that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's like triggering to shut. It's like a long pole with like a clip on the end. And this one, it does the other way around. Like I pull the trigger and it lets go, and then that makes the clamp that holds the tag on the fin shut. So basically I chased him around the aquarium. He got the bait and then didn't want to eat anymore. So I had to basically follow him around. It's like weird. You don't feel like a wildlife hunter, like crawling along rocks and stuff, which is not how you imagine tagging a shark. But that's what I was doing, like crawling around the edge of this aquarium, looking for the spots where he swam close to the edge. And eventually he swam close enough to me and I tagged him. There's some very funny footage of that as well. And then, so he had his camera tag on in the aquarium. It's kind of like a test to see how does he swim in the aquarium. Cause like nobody's got that data before. And then the idea was to compare that data to when he got released. So he's supposed to get released the next day. And, there was some COVID, I think, in the team and they couldn't release him the next day. So we just picked up the camera tag and then we ended our trip. We drove home and I flew up maybe a couple of months later. And this time he was caught and released, and we put a camera tag on him and put an ID tag on him as well. So if he's ever caught in the future, people will know that that's Boof. And the camera tag filmed his release and his dive patterns and his energetics as he made his first 24 hours out into the wild again. And we wrote up a nice little paper on it. It's called Back to the Wild. And it's a tiger shark being released from an aquarium, which has been done in some ways. I don't think a tiger shark, maybe a bit with tiger shark, but never with a camera tag. So it's the first shark released from an aquarium back to the wild with a camera tag on.
Was there any interesting results from the camera tag?
Yeah, it took him a few hours to get his confidence to go deep. So he's been in the aquarium for a while. He only had about 3 meters of depth max. And for the first few hours, he was released towards the end of the day, but he spent about 4 or 5 hours literally on the beach, going backwards and forwards. We couldn't see him. We didn't know he was there, but he was very close to the aquarium for quite a while. And then eventually got his confidence back to start swimming deeper and deeper and deeper. And then eventually got to the deeper parts of the bay a bit later in the next day. And stayed sort of deep for a while, but gradually swimming further and further out into Shark Bay.
Yeah, right. Oh, cool. Did you get him hunting?
We got him doing a few little bursts. He looked at some fish. He definitely had a look at them. We saw a sea snake as well in the footage, which would be a natural prey item of a tiger shark of his kind of size.
They eat everything, right? They're just known for...
Well, they get this reputation and I think people have found car number plates in them and stuff like that.
I got some footage from a few photos from commercial fishers that have caught tiger sharks and opened them up, and they've seen some pretty wild things inside their guts from just floats, commercial fishing floats.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Boots, a baby dolphin.
Dolphin's an interesting one. I've actually found fishing for tiger sharks. They're kind of nice bait. We get pretty fresh bait. We usually go to the local cleaning stations when we're collecting bait. Sometimes from their local fish markets as well, and just basically the offcuts. But we found that if it's a bit stinky, they don't seem to go for it as much. They prefer nice fresh baits. Sometimes they're actually quite picky.
Yeah, right.
But I guess it depends where they are.
I'm guessing a few shark fishermen will be loving that bit of knowledge.
yeah. Well, it depends. It depends where, if you're in, some of the places that we work in World Heritage areas, and those areas are World Heritage areas for a reason, because they're rich, biodiverse. There's lots of fish there. There's lots of prey for a tiger shark. There's turtles as well. There's dugongs as well. Lots of things that a tiger shark can eat. So they're probably pretty well fed in those areas. If you want to motivate a well-fed shark, to eat a bait. It needs to be a good bait. In other areas where, prey is sparse, that's probably the areas where you get the more random things like boots and number plates in the US.
What do you use for great whites?
It depends where you are. It depends on your permits too and what you can get. So it's funny, in South Africa and California, complete opposites. And in Australia, it's actually very similar to South Africa in that no marine mammal products are used for baiting and ecotourism in either of those places. Whereas for the research in Central California, we used whale blubber or we only used marine mammal. That was the regulations there.
How do you get that?
Strandings. So stranded whale, stranded seal, harbour porpoise. Like there's a lot of chances to get, because if you've got a dead whale, you can get like a couple of years worth of bait from it, like without even making like much of a divot in it. So that's what we would use for bait. And colleague Paul again, Paul one year, what was it? It's a humpback, I think. He went and he got so much bait from this humpback whale, and there was there's whale research there documenting it, and then just some general public sort of there, and then Paul comes up with his sled and starts cutting pieces of this whale away and like lobbing it into a sled under permit, of course. But people are like, this guy's crazy. And I mean, I think they think the same in Exmouth as well. Like from the trip that we've just done, I get quite excited when I see someone cleaning up their fish frame and there's a beautiful fish frame, Spanish mackerel, tuna. Geez, like, this is going to make some good bait for the tiger sharks. I go and talk to them, and then they're going through the bins, pulling out frames of spangos and like whatever I can find. But I get quite excited when I find a nice fish, and like people must think I'm crazy. It's like night time. We've been out doing our shark research all day, and then we are picking out fish from a bin to throw in the esky and getting really excited about it and telling them about the shark day that we've had.
So I know a lot of fishermen, they won't use certain like trevallies and tunas and stuff as bait because, as you say, it just attracts sharks more. So we're like fishing for, demersal species. And we won't use those species as bait because that was like, we'll catch sharks with them. We'll use spangos or some other sort of white flesh fish for bait instead. Yeah,
well, I guess that makes sense. It's not really the problem that I would have in that situation, but it was like spangos and ranking cod in Exmouth Gulf. Just, I mean, we haven't done any science on it. Like, I kind of feel like any fresh is just good, tasty looking fish. Like we'll try, but local fish, I always prefer to, if I can, use local fish and find like the fish from that area will be the fish that the sharks naturally be eating.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to some of the questions that I put out. This first time I've done that in a podcast, and the last time I did it in a podcast was with you.
Let's see what people have come up with.
So I don't think we're going to get through all of them, but I'll just go through from the first ones that came through. So we had a question from Reese, which is, are shark numbers declining in parts of Australia, and what are the consequences if we do lose some of these?
In parts of Australia as a whole, was that? I don't know so much from the East Coast. I mean, I've been more ingrained, I guess, in Western Australia's research, particularly with sharks lately. And the great whites as well. I guess I've done some East Coast and aware of some East Coast studies. Now, we have some of the best sort of managed areas for fish and shark populations. And in general, like, we're getting pretty positive looking news. Tiger shark numbers are modestly, but they're modestly going in the right way, going up. I say the right way because the reason that a lot of these species are protected is because their numbers were too low. If we didn't do something about them, they were going to go to critical levels, and some already were. Grey whites is a hard one. We think they're actually pretty stable, but in some areas they've been seen in certain areas that they haven't been seen before, which might be that there's more, but it is also probably a result of other things changing in the ocean. It's there can be displacements like we've seen in South
What are
Africa.
these places that you haven't seen them before?
Well, I know some of the incidents in South Australia. There was attacks in areas where there hadn't been before.
Yeah, right.
And at the time there was not so many sharks seen at the Neptune Islands, for instance. So for whatever reason that may be, we don't know. In South Africa, we've seen it when killer whales come. They displace them and the sharks move to different areas. And again, it happened there too.
Interesting you say, or that observation. I have like a colleague, or not colleagues, friends that are whale researchers, and they fly a plane up and down the Albany coastline. And they've documented where every time they've seen great whites. They're literally flying a plane up and down that coast weekly for I think 7 or 8 months of the year. No one wants that data of where they've seen great whites, but there's there's certain beaches where they see great whites quite regularly, and there's certain beaches where they've never seen a great white. I need to find out out of interest, but I know that would be something actually very interesting.
Oh, I'm quite interested in that. Yeah. And that sounds like South Africa, which I always like feel when I'm down south. It has a similar feeling. You've lived somewhere for as long as that, you notice when the climate's similar, and the part of South Africa that I lived in that there were around was very similar, say, to Albany or Denmark or that kind of climate, that kind of setting. And there we had certain, bay areas, certain beaches that would have aggregations of sharks and certain ones that would not. And so it doesn't surprise me. And as we were saying earlier, they do like to aggregate. Like, I think there's maybe a sense of comfort for them. If there's other ones around, then there must be a reason for the other sharks being around. If you go to a restaurant and it's completely empty, and it's a restaurant, this is a feeding area, like why is it empty?
Yeah, interesting.
That could be a reason for that. There could be a problem here. There could be,
They've also had another interesting observation. So this is Max Fabry and Kate Fenny. They're researchers, mate. The Little White Whale Project. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. I know of them. I've seen their boat.
Their stuff's amazing.
Yeah.
Love those guys. They're awesome. But yeah, I really hope they didn't tell me this in what's the word? Confident way I can't.
In confidence, yeah.
But they noticed two great whites. Like one was swimming really close to the shore, and the other one was just like a little bit. I don't know if it was like 50 or 100 meters further out, but they were just swimming parallel. And I think they saw it do the exact same thing on the way, like because they fly up and back, and I think they saw it doing the same thing both ways. Is that a strange behavior, or is that when you're saying like one would follow another one and learn behaviors? Or
like maybe like the way that I saw it was more like front to back, like one like spots another one. You see it move its body on the camera footage, and after a while you know exactly what it's doing. You know when it's moving for a prey, and you know when it's moving because it's seen another shark, and then it just like lines itself up behind it and just follows it. Actually, there's again that Cal State Long Beach stuff where a lot of juveniles, they do a lot of drone stuff as well, and they've seen a lot of juvenile sharks hanging around together too. So they might have a better answer for that than me. Side by side, but those kind of distances are about the same, right? Like just on the edge of like peripheral vision, like so they'll be aware of each other, aware they're not a threat to each other at that point from that kind of distance, but also keeping an eye on each other, just in case.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was more like a hunting strategy that like one was to scare the fish out and the others like, and then they trap it in. But
I mean, like we don't think that great whites is coordinated as that, Like, I mean, some sharks do work like that. You watch the whalers like bronzies, duskies when they're herding a bait ball with tuners often as well, with birds. They are doing that. They do herd. We don't think great whites do that, but there's a lot we don't know about great whites. So who knows?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to another question. So this one's from Timothy. Is there a difference in the seasonal movement between extra large tiger sharks, for example, 3+ meters, and smaller ones?
Oh yeah, there would be, and tigers are a little bit more. How do I say this? I'm not going to say random. Some people would say random, like their movements are random. I don't necessarily believe that they are. I believe that we just need more data to try and tease apart those seasonal movements, because we definitely have some tiger sharks that are seasonally in shark bay and were there for long periods of time. And the same in Exmouth Gulf, some that would really like focus in certain areas of the Gulf and be there for many months at a time. Other ones that would just go somewhere else and just like, you know, like wander away, and we'll detect them somewhere else, or we won't detect them at all. So there's definitely differences, and there probably are differences in size as well. The juveniles that we've been seeing off Perth coastline, for instance, we've seen that with hammerheads as well, but Trevor the tiger is the famous one, and you know, I think Trevor's about.
Oh, that's one off Mullaloo Beach or something.
Yeah. And there's a few of them, you know, like.
And he just hangs around there, big one.
Yeah, well, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not. He's a youngster,
right?
But he's getting. He's getting bigger. Like, there's a few. There's probably about 6 or 7 Trevors, and on any given day, you know, you can see a few. Curtis. I've lost his name, but he flies a drone there, and he's the person to talk to about that. Curtis and Cora is his Instagram handle. I can't remember his second name. Sorry, Curtis. but I was chatting to him, and he sees them regularly there, and he can see on, you know, it depends on conditions and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like, he can see a few tiger sharks there during the season, which is the summer season, almost every day. Dog Walker Beach at Mullaloo. So yeah, they have set patterns, and they occur at the same kind of time of year. So is
it more common to see sharks in closer in summer and then not?
Here perhaps, with the water being warmer and calmer, but it's all about conditions.
Right. Okay.
So with those types, the tigers and the hammerheads that we get, the hammerheads, it's almost like it's not a nursery. You used to think it was a nursery because they were small, but actually they're reasonably sized. They're kind of sub-adult hammerheads that we get off Point Parent and a few other places, and they're schooling together in quite decent numbers. And then we also get them off Rottnest. We get them off several parts of the coastline, but in the summer. So it is a summer migration down, and then a winter they'll move up, and that'll be temperature driven.
I saw so many tigers out at Rottnest this year.
Yeah.
Every time I was diving out there was tigers, and we had even one day there's 2 of them. Yeah. I just thought there was one just kept on coming at me, because every time like I'd see it swim away, and then I'd turn around and it was like right behind me. I went, geez, that caught up to me quick, but it was actually 2 tigers.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Like I've never seen a tiger at Rottnest, actually. I haven't even seen the Trevor ones around here. I've always been too late or the wrong day. Like
I'm sure you see enough of them when you're out.
I mean, we tagged quite a few of them in the last year or 2.
How many?
We just totaled up Jess's PhD numbers, and I think we've got 21 or 2, maybe 23 tagged tigers, and that's the whole process. And we have way more than that we haven't tagged for whatever reason, or that have got free before we've tagged them. Yeah.
Any interesting movement patterns?
Yeah, we're starting to see them. I mean, again, it's still pretty preliminary, the data, but Ben messaged me today that there's been one detected in Coburn Sound, I think today, or this week anyway.
So that's moved a fair way.
Yeah, and another one was a fish aggregation device off Steep Point, but we're still getting that data, still coming in pretty regularly, and hopefully for the next 10 years will.
I go to another question. So this one's from Astria. What inspired your love and obsession with sharks? You mentioned Jaws earlier.
Yeah, I think I saw Jaws when I was very young.
Usually
like
people
5.
would have got scared.
Yeah, I think we had the option of Neighbours or Jaws was the option my dad gave when he was babysitting my brother and our friends. And we picked Jaws, and I think everyone else ran off and started doing other things, but I think I watched that movie from start to end. And my life was never the same again.
So that was it. That was the start.
I think that was the spark, and then I just loved sharks. You know, sharks and dinosaurs were my thing growing up. I love Jurassic Park as well, so I was either gonna be part of making Jurassic Park real, or I was gonna be working with sharks. It's gonna be one or the other.
Yeah, cool. This is an interesting name. This is just an Instagram handle, so I should have maybe looked onto the actual name. But this person from Slug Boy.
Slug Boy.
Yeah,
great name.
Any advice for new grads getting into this field of marine biology and volunteering opportunities?
Reach out. Yeah, you know, I was at the AMTA Rotto retreat, student retreat. Yes, as were you earlier in the week. And And several of those students were asking that question and asking how they can be involved and stuff. And that's really, that's the way to do it. Reach out to people, come and have a coffee, meet them, meet researchers. We've got 4 institutes in the same city, you know, that doesn't happen other parts of the world. But we've got great research. I mean, ECU is really well known for its seagrass research. Catherine McMahon's lab. UWA has got seagrass. It's got kelp. 2 of the big labs, physical oceanography. We've got our shark work that we do through UWA too.
Curtin does a lot of bruvs, bruvs and things.
Curtin's also really famous for marine mammals. Curtin's got a really big marine mammal group, and they do some amazing stuff with whales up and down the coastline. And at Murdoch here, we've got the Harry Butler Institute. Adrian Gleiss does a lot of megafauna stuff. James Tweedley does a lot of fish stuff. We've got great
estuaries. That's my
estuaries,
my
of
area.
course. Yeah. You know, like, and you know, there's 4 institutes full of research, and that's not even including fisheries, DBCA, AIMS, CSIRO. You know, like there's research groups doing marine biology work across our whole, and our state's massive. We've got like such a great playground split between 4 universities and a few government research institutes. There's some really cool stuff that happens here, and reaching out to the people who are doing it. Listening to podcasts such as this and getting to know the researchers.
I think reaching out is definitely a good one, because that's sort of where I went down, and how I ended up in my role was just sort of going into and speaking, because they're usually all researchers and they really want to talk about their stuff.
Yeah.
And talk when students find enthusiasm to when lecturers find a student that's enthusiastic about a certain topic and all that, they're more than happy to show them. And like, God, that's what they also, especially, I've spent the last 8 years at Murdoch, and when you've got people coming up to you and all that, they go, oh, they're interested, and you want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And like, you're there as an academic to teach people to turn. So if you, I think just
reach out and go and meet them. And like they're busy as well. Like everyone's busy.
Yeah.
Everyone. So don't be put off if you don't hear back from one on one day. You might hear back from them another day. You might hear back from a different researcher. They might just be away in the field or overseas, or just really busy. Or
the messages go into the junk folder or something. Like
so
I email a lot of people and then never hear back. And you're trying to get and
don't be put off by that. Just like, reach out to somebody else. But like for me, it's like if I'm gonna meet somebody, like something like I have coffee every day. And I don't want to be by my computer when I'm having my coffee. I want to go somewhere, have a coffee, and sit. So if somebody says, hey, can we grab a coffee? I'll almost, if I'm around and I've not already got planned, I'll almost certainly say yes. Let's go and grab a coffee and let's chat. We had someone helping on our last trip, Chloe LeBond, who had worked with some people that I have worked with my good friends in London. We caught a coffee, and she was available, and she ended up being our research assistant for our last trip, and it was all sort of discussed over a coffee, and a maybe and a possibility, and like we get lots of people who are keen to come, but just having that meeting, having that chat, getting to know her and know a bit about some of the research that she'd done already. Meant that when I was there's a spot, she was fresh in my mind, and I could email her, and she was able to join us on that trip. And sometimes it's the right place, the right time. Sometimes it's just, again, hey, I'm going to go for a coffee. Do you want to have a coffee? Like, do you want to catch up? Something like that can be a good icebreaker and discuss, opportunities. And, other people I can't necessarily help. Some people, there's also Bruv Lab just down the corridor at UWA from me. And they've had projects available, and sometimes people have emailed me and have been, just spoke to Brooke in the Megfish lab. I know she's looking for somebody, and there's maybe an opportunity there too. So just reaching out, just talking and getting to know people. But
that's some good advice.
Yeah, events like at the amateur events as well are also good.
Students these days, a lot of it's online. A lot of learning is online, and then that when you go to see a lecturer or an academic or whoever, it's like oh, that's this, but like a bit daunting. But
but you can't be. Yeah, you sort of just like just make that step, and it's a bit like being at a conference. Also, local conferences are good places to meet people.
Like the event that we were at last week.
Yeah, the answer Snapchat was great.
Yeah, there was like
free
citizens.
events as well.
Yeah. So we've got to follow or go to more of those, because that had just general public, that had people from all different organizations, whether it's a scientist, researcher, they had artists there, they had like all different, it was a great connection to.
Yeah, things like that. Get on the newsletters and see when events are happening, and then you'll see, and also you see researchers outside of their usual setting, and the usual setting is usually a really stressful office.
Yeah.
Banging their head against the wall with the computer, which is why it's great to, like, for me, it's great if people say they want to meet like away from the office. Yeah. This has gone to be one of the longest podcasts I've done. Time is really long. Yeah, I saw you looking that way. I didn't realize that was where the.
Well, it's also because I've got to keep an eye on the SD card, because that keeps running out of space. But this one must have been a larger one. But time I think the last podcast we did was my longest one, and we've backed it up again.
Backed it up again. Yeah, I mean, like, again, it's like I say, like, get me out of the office, offer me a coffee, and I'll just keep talking about sharks.
It's been fantastic. You obviously a wealth of knowledge of so many. I still have so many different questions. There's plenty on there that we didn't get through. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, sorry for talking your ear off.
No, it's the whole point of this, right?